Dear Boomers, today we continue our conversation about the fear of death, and I am calling it what we will be discussing. It's called Death is Not the Enemy. Death is not the enemy. Well, of course, there are no enemies. We are all connected and we are all one. The more that we raise our energy to embrace this truth, the happier we will be. I have started to read Julia Asante's book called The Last Frontier, and I'm just going to go over some of the stuff she says. I had interviewed her on my radio show years ago on Blog Talk Radio, and recently wrote a blog about it. And YouTube didn't like something I said in the video that I had erected for the occasion. And I was momentarily banned. But I think I was saying that don't take your doctor's word without doing your own research about your own body and about your own feelings. Basically, we are here to be strong within ourselves. And of course, God speaks through everyone, even your doctor. When you go into a hospital setting to get something checked out, everybody you meet is God in drag, as Ram Dass says. So we are all curious about what lies beyond the veil and of life, and you have to do an in-depth study to understand what it's all about. In our modern culture, death is seen as something to be feared, and I dare say it is seen as an enemy by most people, a looming shadow that we avoid discussing. And The Last Frontier by Julia Asante challenges this fear, drawing on historical, cultural, and spiritual perspectives on death. As we mentioned yesterday in yesterday's video, so often we are when you look at other cultures, their fear of death is not as distinct as ours. Our fear of death is a little bit crazy sometimes. Asante her work is based on years of study and personal experience. She dives into the near-death experience phenomenon. She's worked with Raymond Moody, which I'm sure Life After Life was one of his first books. I believe he's written many books after that. And that the Life After Life goes into how people glimpse the other side and return with profound insights. And these stories, combined with spiritual encounters and ancient traditions, provide compelling evidence that death is not an ending, but a transition, and perhaps a new beginning. So by embracing death rather than fearing it, it can transform how we actually live. Asante explores how individuals can even communicate with the dead, offering hope to those seeking comfort after loss. And as we have learned by reading and listening to John Mears, his story about his daughter Angela, and how soon after her so-called death, she started to, as he called it, whisper, not sweet nothings, but whisper very profound and wise things that were beyond this life. And he, because of his years of meditation, was receptive to her messages. So if we and I think he's been able to make peace with death, and I believe he's probably accepted the reality of the afterlife based on his communication with his daughter. But when we do that, we can live more fulfilled life and live more purposeful lives here on earth. It reminds me of, I was taking care of a friend of mine who was dying, a very old family friend, and I realized pretty quickly that if I started talking about death, because she was dying, and I wanted to talk about it with her, But she's like, no, that's really off the subject that I can deal with. She refused to talk about death until the very end. She refused. I found that to be interesting because most people do want to talk about death when they're dying. In fact, when my mother had her stroke, and she may have had several more, she said, "Oh, Kate, do you think I'm trying to die?" So she opened the conversation. Now, to me, that was like, oh, no, no, no. You're not trying to die? What are you talking about? You're not going to die. What's wrong with me? Okay. So it is the fear of the unknown. She had no fear about death because she was tapping into these metaphysical ideas as long as I knew her, which at the time might have been about 36 years. So when we do think and tap into the unknown, we are into a transcendence that goes beyond our physical existence. And by releasing our fear of death, requires us to shift how we perceive it through the personal stories that are shared in the book and in many other books. We see how other people have experiences with death, either their own or through loved ones. Now, my husband had a heart attack near my birthday in 2018, maybe 2017. That was his third heart attack, and he had been in the hospital waiting to probably have a heart cath, and they were thinking about doing a stent in his heart. But as he was getting up to go he was in the hospital. And just because you're in the hospital doesn't mean that they can prevent your death. And that was kind of a revelation to me. I always say, well, you're in the right place and they're taking care of you, but if this is your moment, there's no way of stopping it, really. But he got up and he had his heart monitor on, and all of a sudden he decompensated. His heart started going haywire. So the nurses came running in, they put him into the bed, and they started performing giving him drugs through his IV line that might tamper down the situation. I believe he probably had a few shocks, and he left his body, and he was leaving. He was going down that tunnel that everybody talks about. But he turned around, and he saw them working on his body to try to save his life. And he thought, oh, I don't want to disappoint them. I guess I will go back. And he did. But those kinds of experiences made him have no fear about his own death. I don't think he would have handled it very well if somebody else would have died. Maybe me, but one of his children especially. So we have to shift our perception of our fear of death. And these stories, especially the one I just told and many others, show us that there's nothing to fear. It's a natural progression in our soul's journey. Now, I wrote a blog post about this, and we explored in that blog that, the cultural conditioning and societal fears, religious influences on death perception. When you think about the Christian religion, they say that the only way you can go to heaven is by accepting Jesus Christ as your Savior. Well, I never believed that. I don't think it's true. But I like Jesus. What a saint he was and is, of course, he still is. And our media perceptions, the movies we see, and the commercials we see about perpetuating, longevity at the expense of wrinkles on your face. So these things impact our daily life and decision making concerning our own perception of death. And these factors contribute to a collective anxiety about death that affects our choices, our relationships, and overall well being. But what if we could shift our perspective? So, what it comes down to is that the fear of death stems from the unknown. We all know we're going to die. And there's like people who are terrified of death, and Elon Musk comes to mind. He creates these things. He's trying to create to discover ways of prolonging life forever. He's one of those people. And it's the uncertainty. It's that death represents the ultimate unknown. This is uncomfortable for sure, and it can manifest in certain ways, in very many different ways, from anxiety and depression to reckless behavior and a desperate clinging to youth, especially in this country. By acknowledging these fears and their origins, we can begin to address them more effectively. The psychological roots of death anxiety has psychologists have long studied the fear of death. There's a word for it, thanatophobia. Some theories suggest that this fear is at the root of all human anxieties. Understanding the psychological aspects of death anxiety can help us approach it rationally. Number 1, existential anxiety, the fear of non-existence. Now, I will say, once again, that there are ways to prepare our mind for relinquishing the fear of death through meditation, through breathing. We did a 3-hour meditation yesterday, and I was able to send my breath to an area in my body that was very painful, and it was healed after that, although I probably need to do it every day. There's a separation anxiety that can arise in the mind because we fear losing connection with our loved ones. And the whole idea of losing our pets is just as profound as for many people, not everybody. For when you lose a pet, it's very profound. And also the fear of the dying process. You might be afraid of pain or suffering and unfinished business. Maybe you didn't give away all the passwords on your computer so that one of your children can take over, that kind of thing. We might worry about leaving goals and tasks incomplete. So we have to identify which part of death affects us the most. What is it? Or frightens us the most. We can target our efforts to overcome these specific fears. So, I love the idea of recognizing immortality in the present moment. When I get into a realm of timelessness, of immortality, of eternal life, which can happen as soon as we raise our vibrational field into that realm of spiritual enlightenment, immortality, eternal life, the moment, living in the moment is the only way you can experience these things. It's the internal nature of consciousness. We can start to see ourselves as more than just our physical bodies. And I've been studying the Course in Miracles for many years, and maybe that's what the Course in Miracles talks about, because, I am not a body, I am free, for I am as God created me, is one of their ongoing mantras throughout the Course. And I think our bodies are a beautiful thing, and we need to cherish it. We need to love ourselves, which does include our bodies. This shift in perspective can help alleviate the fear of physical death. Practices like mindfulness and meditation can help us experience the timeless quality of awareness, giving us a taste of what some might call immortality consciousness. Immortality consciousness. So just, follow your breath and notice the thoughts and sensations as they arise, and but don't engage with them. Be a witness. Be a witness, and then also learn how to be a witness to everything that happens in your life. To appreciate it, to have gratitude for it, but to have a kind of divine nonchalance about everything that takes place. So the NDEs, the near-death experiences, like the one I just described about my husband, offer fascinating insights into what might happen after we die. And now my husband had not reached the end of that tunnel to experience the pure love that Angela describes in her book. But many other near-death experiences do talk about that pure love that happens after death. And as I have mentioned, and John and I were saying, that her message is to experience pure love now. And I think pure love is the same as unconditional love. And any other kind of love is inferior. So, what happens? There are common themes to near-death experiences, such as out-of-body awareness, encounters with our deceased loved ones, they're waiting for us, a sense of unconditional love and acceptance, and often there's a life review. The one book, I think it was called Struck by Lightning, or maybe it had to do with this guy who really wasn't that nice of a guy, but he was struck by lightning, and it threw him off his feet, and he hit his body onto the ceiling, and he collapsed onto the floor, and the lightning was the electrical current, pretty much would have killed anybody, but he was in the morgue, and his family was standing next to his body when he blew on the sheet to let them know he was alive. And so the rest of the book is I think he then sought out Raymond Moody and Dr. Moody helped him to synthesize, to integrate this experience. And also his body was a mess. He had to rebuild his body. But he became very psychic. He had no fear of death. And he had, and he goes to lots of these NDE conferences with Raymond Moody, and he tells his story. There are a lot of interesting stories. There are so many interesting stories. In fact, Anita Marjoli is one who that was an out-of-body near-death experience that Wayne Dyer popularized at the time. She wrote to him trying to get him to answer a question about it, and he got, in fact, he helped her publish her book. She had such debilitating cancer that it just was all over her body. She did die. She tells the whole story in her book, and she had a lot of stress because as an Indian woman she was expected to marry somebody that she did not love, and that caused her stress in the sense that she had to go against her parents in this situation. And that was very painful for her, although they loved her, but they were a little angry at her for not doing what this society, her culture, had recommended. So this kind of deep, shame and guilt, kind of soon after she did get cancer, but she did meet another man, and they did get married, and he stood by her side. I guess he was surprised when she came back. She came back cancer-free. And so this is a kind of story that may happen more often than we realize, but it was something. She's like on the circuit of this kind of near-death and afterlife experience, because she experienced pure love. She met the people in her life that hadn't forgiven her, had not forgiven her, and she forgave them. I mean, when you die like that and you do experience pure love, you are in a whole nother state of mind, and you are not in this. First of all, nobody has a body. the body kind of wears us down a little bit. Um, so we can use certain spiritual practices to tune us into immortality and to get into expanded states of consciousness. And they give us a taste of our true nature. Who are we really? We don't know who we are, and we need to not necessarily worry about it, that's for sure. So there are powerful ways to overcome the fear of death, and we can explore afterlife communication in our own lives. This practice helps us to connect to those who have passed and provide evidence of consciousness beyond physical life. So anytime I think of my husband Tommaso, who did have a fourth heart attack during COVID, with COVID, and passed on, and I have been able to feel his presence, and his death and my mother's death and my aunt's death, all three of these deaths I was present for at the time of their the last breath. I was a labor and delivery nurse for many years, and I was in women's health as a nurse practitioner. But the thing I noticed that when a baby is born, they take a huge inhale. They inhale. And when you die, it's a huge exhale. And this is a universal truth, and it's unbelievable, really. I mean, so you can use that kind of knowledge in your meditative practice. Now, according to Julia Asante, we are all mediums, and we have the innate ability to communicate with the deceased. It's not a special gift reserved for a select few, but it is a skill that can be developed with practiced intention. So what we can do is read some books about it, I guess, to tap into your mediumistic abilities. You have to be in a quiet place, get away from the social media, and you have to be in a contemplative state of mind. You set an intention to connect with a loved one who has passed and remain open to subtle impressions, feelings, or thoughts that may arise. And with practice, these impressions may become clearer and more specific. Meditation and visualization helps lay the groundwork. Automatic writing, dream work, what is in your dreams can really help a lot. Maybe not all the dreams are visitations of your loved one, but some are. And you can work with a professional medium to help enhance your study. So it's important to approach these practices with an open mind and especially an open heart. And you may have a healthy sense of skepticism. That's normal too. So we have to basically approach this study with a feeling of tolerance, acceptance, and gratitude. And after a while, we will not be driven by the fear of death. But as I said in yesterday's film or little video, that the more we talk about it, the more people want to talk about it. And it produces meaningful conversations about something that is going to happen to you and to me. It's going to happen. It has already happened to others that we know and love. Why are we so resistant to love? Because that's what it is. We're so fearful, but once you get rid of the fear, there's nothing but pure love. And you don't have to wait to die to experience it. It's going to be a little video that shows up right here. Please comment and let me know what you think about this. And as I may have mentioned, John Mears and I will be hosting together a series of how to bring death out of the closet in American society. Love to all.